Dabo Benquino.
Oh, whoa, wow. How did you hide that name for this long?
I couldn't name him David Benavides. He does not feel like a David Benavides. He feels like a Dabo Benquino. Chase.
Yeah.
What is Crash Mandiboots? Oh no, sorry. Scratch Mandiboots neutral B attack.
Oh man.
That's the flavor attack. So I'm just wondering what you would say.
So like, if you're asking me, one of the hosts of Video Game Podtimism, the Optimist video game variety show, where two best friends talk about the wonderful world of gaming. My name is Chase.
My name is David.
What Crash Bandicoot's neutral B would be? It would definitely be the spinning move, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, that seems like it. And so I think if you're thinking of his weird cousin who we defined last week as Scratch Mandiboot, it's got to be something like that, but not exactly that, right?
So here's what I would think if you're trying to make him a riff off of Crash, right? He would spin around still, but while he's spinning, he's also throwing out flyers for people to go to their local Democratic Socialist convention or meetup or what have you.
Yeah.
So a little bit more range. Maybe like if you hit somebody with the flyer, it could stick on them and do like a little poison damage, right?
That's fun.
Yeah, or like make them weigh them down so they can't jump as high, right? Because you're feeling the oppression of capitalism on their shoulders, right? It's a lived experience. They're trying to get people to understand where they're coming from.
David informed me not long before we started this podcast that he's about halfway through an espresso martini. And I feel the difference.
It's the Four Loko for the 1%, truly.
It really, really is, yeah. A Four Loko and a turtleneck is what an espresso martini is.
With a fancy monocle maybe as well. Who knows?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Why not?
They're fancy. They can get away with that kind of thing.
That's good for you.
Wow. I too have been feeling the power of Scratch in the past week or so. I feel like we're on kind of a run of a lot of weird little guys being added to the Podtimism lore recently.
You know, spring has sprung and we are giving birth to a lot of new characters. That's what's happening.
They're coming out of their little rabbit holes they've been burrowed away in for the winter.
Now it's just a National Geographic documentary in my head. Just the two mama bears of Podtimism coming out with all these new characters from their den. David Attenborough on the voiceover.
About 10 to 12 freaks come out of hibernation. One by one, the two papa bears go and define who these weird little guys are.
Only the weirdest and the littlest ones will survive to the next episode.
They sort of turn them in from normal guys into just kind of proxies by which they can express their political viewpoints.
That is usually how we do. We start with a regular person, and then we devolve them into something that
something else. Yeah, corrupt them. Otherwise, yeah.
The corruption of the Podtimism. Whoa.
Have you been playing video games, David?
I have been. Yes.
What do you got? What's on your plate right now?
Okay, I got some games. I got some games right now. Okay,
talk to me.
So beat Resident Evil 2 last week.
Yes.
This week I beat Resident Evil 3.
Yes, it's much shorter.
That's a short game. That's a little bite-sized game.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this game. It was a very different feel than Resident Evil 2. I like that Jill is canonically like super cop, like Carlos calls her in the game, right?
Yeah,
and she feels like that. She moves so much faster around the world. You can move much quicker while you're aiming as her as well. She has her little dodge move. So it just feels much more of an action-oriented game when you're playing as Jill. And Jill's cool. She's got Samus Aran energy. I like Jill a lot. You know, she just has this, I just kind of over it. I'm tired of this shit. Get me out of here. I'm not really afraid, but I'm just mad and capable.
So, mad and capable is great.
Mad and capable. That. So let's do this. Let's dance, buddy. Yeah, I really like the character of Jill, especially when she's faced with Nemesis and is just consistently going like, Carlos, I got this, dude. I can take on this fucking monstrosity one-on-one. It's not a problem. I'm on it. It's just like every single time she says something like that, it gets progressively more ridiculous as Nemesis just evolves into this globular monstrosity by the end of the game. You're just like, no, you don't got this, Jill. Yeah. But somehow she still does. That was pretty amazing. Yeah, and I did like the character of Nemesis. He's an absolute freak.
Yeah.
Yeah, loved how he just continually changes throughout the game from feeling kind of like almost a Mr. X part 2 into, oh, this is definitely not Mr. X. This is a completely unique and terrifying creature that I am fighting with now.
Yeah.
I also like how when he's introduced, it's, I think, clearly the LA city skyline in the background when he's put onto the helicopter. So now my question is Nemesis canonically an Angelino? Is that where he was created?
Yeah, is the Umbrella Corporation in LA.
Yeah, at least that's what I got from that skyline, but who knows? Maybe it's somewhere else in the world. Anyways, I guess light spoilers for the end of Resident Evil 3, the remake. I love a railgun. My goodness.
Extremely fun. Yeah,
railguns are always so fun in any game because they are just unfuckwithable weapons. If you have a railgun, you know that they're just going to let you blow something to hell.
Yes, yeah.
Which felt so good when I just blasted Nemesis in the face, and then afterwards there's a hole through the wall behind him
so
too.
Good,
oh man. It's like I had energy to spare to fuck him up with that railgun. It was very nice. Yeah. And I did enjoy the character of Carlos. I don't know. Was he in the original one too?
He is, yeah.
Okay.
Looks exceptionally different in the first one.
Gotcha.
Like the character models are like, they look like very different dudes. I like personally love the redesign they did, to be honest.
Yeah, I liked Carlos's redesign. I felt both seen and attacked with how helmety his hair looked, as also a thick Latino haired man.
Yeah.
So it's just like, that is how my hair would look if I kept it very long and wavy.
Yeah.
So, but he was a cool character. I enjoyed Carlos, and I liked how he just felt very much like an action game when you were playing as him, and how you got to play as him, a very action-oriented character, shooting-oriented character, going back through the Raccoon Police Department and comparing that to how you played it as Leon.
Yeah.
And then going through and doing all these things that fucked up the place a little bit, and be like, oh, that's why the vents were all, the steam vents were all fucked up in the bathroom.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed how those two games were connected, and how it was starting off in the very beginning of the game. You see just the beginning of the chaos that's going on in Raccoon City.
Yeah.
Whereas, when in Resident Evil 2, you're seeing it when it's already kind of done. It's over at that point, and it's if anyone comes into town, like, you're going to get messed up.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a really fun game. I enjoyed playing it back to back with Resident Evil 2 because it feels like these are essentially kind of the same game, just one is more action oriented than the other. Wasn't quite as scary as, of course, because you have more power, you have more options. Like Carlos will just go around, and if you just double dodge into one of those, into an enemy, he'll just punch it to hell and it'll get blasted back. Like Leon's definitely not doing that. But Leon's also a rookie on the police force, so that's just how it goes. Yeah. And then Clara's she's been trained by a STARS member, but she's not a military or police member, right?
Yeah,
so it makes sense.
She was also in the first game, so she's like encountered zombies before,
She was in the first game too. Gotcha. Yeah. I didn't know that. I need to play the first one now, I think.
I'm interested to see if they remake that one as well. Again, like I'm a defender of the remake that's on GameCube. Like I think that one's pretty, I don't know, it takes a lot of what the original was doing and doesn't alter it that much. Like it still feels like the game is very much intact, but they just like emphasized what that game did well. But I think it's worth a play, but it will be a very different experience compared to these two.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be more tank controls, right? It's not the over-the-shoulder view.
Yep.
That's fine. I can deal with that.
Yeah.
I kind of enjoy that nowadays, right? So yeah, I beat that. Very fun game.
Yeah.
And then immediately jumped right into Resident Evil 4. Had to. I was like, I need to play Resident Evil 2 and 3 because they were on like Game Pass and PSN at that point, and it just felt right to then get into Resident Evil 4 after that because I'd been waiting to play this game for quite some time. And just for a little background, this was probably one of my favorite games, one of my goats, as you could say, when I was in high school for sure.
I remember this. Yeah,
loved this game. One of the few games of the PS2, Xbox, GameCube era that I played multiple times.
Yes,
I'm not a big play through it again kind of guy, but this one I think I played through 3 times. And I'm just really impressed by how fresh it feels. I don't notice or feel many similarities in at least how the levels are structured in this beginning portion of the game that I've played so far between this one and the original. So I'd love that they've given it such a facelift and such a feeling of newness as well. And then also I really enjoy playing it after 2 and 3 because now we're going up the hierarchy of, badasses. I guess that feels so shitty to say for some reason. The hierarchy of skill of these characters, I'll say. Sure. So, you had Leon as a rookie, and then you have Jill as an elite super cop, as I said in Resident Evil 3, and then now Leon as a super secret federal agent who can now really run very fast. He's very mobile, and he can roundhouse kick people so hard that they just die.
Their head explodes.
Yeah, their head explodes. And like the very first person that he encounters, who is a ganado, he just roundhouse kicks them. They hit the wall and their neck breaks. Like a regular human would be dead, right? It's just absurd. But it's so absurd that it works somehow.
It's very fun.
I love the campiness of it, but how serious it takes itself at the same time. It's a great combination that they've kept from the original, which I really appreciate. And it just allows you to be much more aggressive in the game than, the other 2 entries that I was just talking about, 2 and 3. You can really run around quite a bit and stun enemies and then kill them, right? Because that's essentially what the roundhouse kick does. You shoot them a couple times, they're stunned, you go up, you kick them, and they're dead. So it really adds to how you play the game from a offensive standpoint, which is a breath of fresh air compared to the other 2.
Sure.
I haven't gotten too far into it at this point. I'm getting close to the lake, which was one of my favorite portions of the game when I was in high school first playing it.
Yeah.
And now I'm thinking, are they trying to make the gammas from Resident Evil 3, the fish, the freaky fish things, are those supposed to be the same thing as what's in the lake?
Yeah,
in
I wonder.
This one? I don't know.
Be.
I haven't encountered it yet, so I can't say.
Yeah, I don't remember any specific lore, but there is kind of a similar deal with what those things even look like, right?
Yeah. It might be implied, but who knows?
Yeah.
Time will tell. But really enjoying this remake. It's really good. It's really good.
Yeah.
It looks amazing. Yeah. The quality is just exceptional with this Resident Evil engine that they use. So I'm really excited to see what else they got for me in that one.
Yeah, it's truly exceptional. I totally agree with you. When I played through it, I'm like, how does this game feel so new?
Yeah.
While I don't know, if I hadn't just played Resident Evil 4 a year or 2 ago, it would have been like, is this even different? What is the difference here? But it's dramatic how much they have somehow retained what that game felt like without having to carry over all the shit that in hindsight may have felt old by this point.
A little rough, don't you think?
God, dude.
So bad.
It's not great. Luis, yeah. Him and the updates to Ashley and Ada as well all feel like this is the same character for sure, but way more realistic, you know?
Yeah.
In the first one, they just feel like kind of cartoon characters, you know? And there's a ridiculousness to them still, but Luis feels like a real guy, and so does Ashley, and so does Ada, you know? Leon to some extent, but I feel like they do a better job of showing him this man is not okay in this game. He has sort of just fallen from where he was in the second one.
He's just very jaded. He's very jaded in this one. Yeah. He, like I said, he's the rom-com character who was in the wrong game. He got put into a horror game, and now he's just grumpy at the world. But hey, the bingo line still hits. I love it.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
It still hits. I was worried that they were going to keep it and worried that they wouldn't keep it because it hits so hard. It's so ridiculous and sets the tone for the whole game of after this intense, scary moment, Leon hits you with a one-liner that is just so fucking ridiculous.
Because right after that is when they roll the intro,
the title,
Resident Evil 4 screen. Yeah. So good.
Crazy.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really excited to see what else this game has in store for me. So I'll be keeping y'all updated on that.
Yeah.
I've also been playing Infinite Guitars.
What on earth is this video game, David?
This game is on Game Pass. It is a very unique game.
Yeah.
It is a mashup of rhythm, turn-based gameplay, and then also top-down action.
Whoa.
So the game world you're walking around in is a top-down kind of almost cartoonish, anime-ish art style. So it's like an overworld, you're walking around in it, you go through a different screen and it moves the world over to there, right? Kind of that classic style, like Zelda-ish, right? You can dodge in the open world, like attacks from enemies. You can interact with other guitars to start a rhythm minigame to open doors, right?
Yeah.
But then when you fight enemies, it turns into a turn-based game, which then will also have timing and rhythm elements in it, depending on what attacks you use, right? So you can do just a regular old hit them with your guitar move, which if you time it correctly can do a lot of damage or no damage at all.
Right.
Or you can decide to do a like core power based move where you're playing your guitar and you have to play a rhythm minigame where you're hitting different buttons on the controller, matching them up Rock Band, Guitar Hero style.
Yeah.
And depending on how well you do more or less damage. So it's kind of like that, what is that, Eichenfeld and Legend
Paper
of
Mario
Dragoon
kinda.
style and Wario and Mario RPG, Paper Mario style of turn-based action taken to like another level because there's so many button inputs you have to do to get the best result, right?
Sure.
It's a very interesting game. I love how it feels to move around in the overworld. I love the music. It's all very jazzy, like not techno jazz, but like futuristic jazz almost. It reminds me a lot of like Cowboy Bebop-ish music.
Oh gosh.
Which is great. Maybe not quite as traditional like Japanese jazz, but a little bit more futuristic than that. And then the style of the game, especially like the after you beat an enemy scene and just the feel of it gives me Persona vibes as well. Which is very fun. I do enjoy that in this game. It's very stylized and enjoyable in that way. And especially when you get into a different part of the overworld, the music is beating to how the enemies are attacking you. So you have to dodge with the beat, which is, I think, a very fun way of doing it.
Yeah.
Of doing a rhythm-based action game, I should say.
Yeah.
Right? Because I did play Hi-Fi Rush recently, and that's much more you're doing offense with the beat as opposed to defending with the beat. And I feel like maybe defending with the beat works a little bit better for me as opposed to like hitting people with the beat.
Sure.
It's a very interesting and different mashup of so many different styles of games, but somehow works really well. Has an interesting enough story and arc. I wouldn't say it's anything groundbreaking, but the characters are likable and the art I think is really good. It's engaging anime style art, which I'm of course a sucker for because I'm an anime guy.
Yeah.
I was really surprised by this game. I downloaded it on a whim from Game Pass because I saw it was leaving soon. I'm like, oh, this looks kind of fun. Looks up my alley, and it was. It's quite enjoyable. It leaves Game Pass on the 31st, so I don't know how much more I'm going to play of this one. But it's fun. It's a lot of fun, and it seems like there is going to be introduction of more characters that have different stats. Maybe you're like playing a bass guitar, I don't know, instead of a regular guitar. But it's very interesting how they have created one cohesive game around so many different styles of game. And I'm pretty impressed by how they've been able to do that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been kind of like looking at reviews while you're talking about this.
Yeah.
It does look pretty mixed, like from folks on the internet. So it's interesting to hear like what is working for you and what isn't. Because the concept seems great. Yeah. Right? It looks amazing, just like visually. So it's cool to hear it's like firing for you.
I enjoyed it. I would say that the rhythm mini games are. I'm still having a tough time getting the timing that they want from me down because the UI is a little nebulous for me, at least, of where and when they want me to press the button.
Sure.
Sometimes I hit it perfectly, and sometimes I like get a 20% sync rate as opposed to a 70 or 80 or 90, and I just don't know what I've done differently. The feedback, I think, improving the feedback of whether or not you're early or late or anywhere in between would be good for the rhythm portion of the games and make it feel a little bit more accessible that way. You can also turn up the difficulty. And of course, they ask you in the beginning, how are you with rhythm games? I said, I'm an expert because I played expert on Guitar Hero and Rock Band. So give it to me. Give it to me. So yeah, it's fun. I enjoy it. I could see how it would be off-putting to some folks, but I just love how they're implementing rhythm in this game in so many different ways, which is cool.
I feel like for anybody around our age, the promise of a good rhythm game is just like a siren song to our aging souls. Like, hey,
is
do you
this
want to
gonna
maybe
give me the bump like Guitar Hero did?
Is this gonna feel at least like a little bit as good as Guitar Hero did?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. And it doesn't get quite there, but it feels good.
Yeah, that's cool. I'll have to check it out if it's on Game Pass, especially.
Yeah, like I said, the 31st it leaves, but give it a go. I played just like the first couple of levels and I had a good time with it. It's fun.
If you listen to this podcast the day it comes out, today is the day that it leaves. So you either
get there now, run to your Xbox.
It may already be gone, or you have about 10 hours to play.
Depending on where you are in the world, it might already be gone.
Yeah, true. Sorry, Australia, New Zealand.
Yeah,
we're too late.
Sorry. We'll send out a pre-message on the Discord or something. Be like, hey,
at everybody in here, don't miss your shot.
Infinite Guitars. Although if this is your jam, I could see it being very much worth the price of admission for just paying for it as well. That is also an option. It's not like it's getting delisted from the internet, right?
Yeah, they're deleting it entirely.
No more guitars. Mm-hmm. I've also been playing NBA 2K24.
Yeah, you sent me a picture of a basketball ghoul the other day.
I had to. It was the same thing. It was on Game Pass, and like I can't not just see what is going on.
Yeah, you got it.
In this franchise at this point. Sometimes downloading it feels like I'm punishing myself for no good reason.
Yeah.
But I think at this point, my expectations are so low for these games that now I'm actually pleasantly surprised.
Whenever there's like a basketball in the video
when
game.
I'm actually like playing the game and it's still fun. Mm-hmm. Because I mean, they haven't really changed the base gameplay since like, what was it, NBA 2K9 or 10 when they really started to nail the feel of the basketball sim portion of it, which is when it really became like, not just like, it became a legitimately good video game at that point. And it's sad to see how far it's fallen. Mm-hmm. But I feel like this game, compared to the last one I played, touches that enjoyment better for me personally, because what I always love doing is creating a ghoul of some sort.
Yeah, of course.
Downloading the proprietary app, scanning my face on it, uploading it to the internet. Now 2K has probably like rights to my facial features because of this, and then creating just the most ghoulish creature of me. This time it was a little bit closer. I think they kind of nailed my nose somehow.
Your nose was good.
Yeah, they got like the little bump that's in there, but my cheeks were a monstrosity.
So bloated.
Yeah, I think they were very confused by my beard.
Yes.
Yeah. So the beard really threw off the algorithm.
Yeah.
And created something quite unique.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what I liked about this one is, and it's hard for me to really say if I like this one more because it's doing better things, or if I like this one more because the kings are better in it. Probably for the first time in my entire life of playing this game, the Kings are a good basketball team in this game.
Yeah,
and
it's shocking.
And then when you do the My Career mode, you can choose which team you get put on. And of course, I had to choose the Kings, right?
I had to do it to him. Hometown hero.
Exactly. So now I am on this team and my character is terrible because they always make you terrible when you start off. But it's not a big deal because the rest of the team is so good that I can kind of hide myself behind all the good players and just be like an A+ teammate, setting screens for them, passing them the ball when they need it, and just kind of mopping up points where I can.
Yeah.
And it just really works nicely that way, as opposed to trying to make a 60 player rating overall character be the hero of the team, which is always a disaster. Always a disaster. Yeah, so I was actually having a pretty good time playing this game, surprisingly enough. But I also think that it helps that one, like I said, the Kings are good, which I think is just pandering to me at that point.
Sure, to David specifically, yeah.
And I am just blasting through any and all cutscenes. Like, I don't care at this point. It's not going to be good. It's not going to be interesting. Maybe that's me being very pessimistic about it, but they have not shown me anything to think otherwise in the last maybe 7 or 8 installments, right?
Yeah.
It's much better if you just treat it as a basketball game simulator as opposed to this overarching narrative.
Yeah.
Because it just takes me out of the character that I have created for myself, Dabo Benquino, as I call him.
Oh, whoa. Wow. How did you hide that name for this long?
I couldn't name him David Benavides. He does not feel like a David Benavides. He feels like a Dabo Benquino. Right?
Benquino or Benquino?
Benquino.
Benquino.
He's still
Benquino.
Da Ben, but he's Dabo Benquino.
Man, David, this is like 3 for 3 episodes of making weird little guys. Dabo Benquino is like immediately in my Hall of Fame. I love this guy.
It just came to me. It was a lightning bolt of inspiration. The Benquino name, I think.
Benquino is inspired. Like Dabo is something that's been around for a little while.
It has been, but I finally honed in on the last name for him.
Yeah,
it makes sense. It feels good. It feels good to say.
It feels good to hear. I'll keep it real with you, man.
Thank you.
It feels good on my ears. Yeah.
I appreciate that. So yeah, and I think that also the face scanning component of this game gives me that desire to make just the weirdest kind of creation that I want, and that like I can't get from Madden, and I didn't get that from the PGA game. Sorry for the golf talk again. But it's so fun just to create a monstrosity and just let him loose on the world and just see how people react to him with a stone cold face like, oh yeah, this is a real human that I'm talking to, when it absolutely is not a real human you're talking to. It is my not even my doppelganger, but just like my cursed shadow. I don't know.
It's like David reflected through like a funhouse mirror. Yeah, is what you get in this video game.
Absolutely. That's a great way of putting it. It is my funhouse mirror. It's like taking all the funhouse mirrors, reflections of me, and then jamming them together into one creature.
Then you get Benquino.
Get that Quino, baby. Sorry. So yeah, I'm actually having a fun time with this one because it's giving me what I want. A weird guy and good basketball sims with a good Kings team. So yeah, that's great. That's great for me. I love that.
Yeah. I saw that this one specifically was just getting like horrible reviews.
Yeah.
And I think that it is mostly a microtransaction thing.
Oh yeah.
Like I've got another game to talk about that I think is actually not nearly as bad with microtransactions, but like even from people that I trust on the internet, I saw like it's pretty bad in here.
It is bad. Let me tell you. I was just trying to get to the main menu and I was just trying to press A, going through all of the, like developer and publisher little, what do you call them? They're not ads, but they're just like, hey, we made this game sort of deals that go on.
The kind of credits, I guess.
There you go. The front credits, we'll call them.
Yeah.
And I'm pressing A, and then I get to the main menu. But if you press A in the main menu, the first time you get into the main menu, it takes you directly to the store to purchase like a $50 like download of VC and special things. I'm like, no, because like my credit card's on there. So like if I press A too much, I might just accidentally spend $50 on this game, and then I have to keep it forever. Like I'm obligated at that point.
There's like a man standing at the entrance of NBA 2K24 with a long mustache and a top hat with like a big wire that he's like about to pull taut so that you trip and fall and buy $50 worth of V-Bucks.
Absolutely. So buyer beware. If you download this game, have patience through the opening credits, because otherwise you might find yourself buying like $50 worth of VC virtual credits, right?
Yeah.
And you'll maybe get like 2 or 3 ability points from that. Yeah. Careful with it. If you're good at the game, you can get by being a scrub on a good team, right? But it is sad to see what it's become, because man, was it so good when it was like 2K9. Oh yeah, man, that was a good game.
When it was just the video game.
Yeah, that was a love letter to basketball. Michael Jordan was on the cover, and you could play through specific moments in his career and try to mimic what he did, and it was hard to do because he was just so good. Oh man, that was just a good game. That wasn't a good sports game. That was just a good game, and I will die on that hill. Anyways, that's enough basketball talk.
Sure. Last
thing I've been playing, I'll just touch on this quickly. Mario Wonder.
Yeah.
Mario is good.
Mario's good.
It wasn't quite hitting with me at first, but I think they are. It's a game that is intended for everybody to be able to play. So I think the first levels were just easier because they're like, hey, kids, let's get you in easy, acclimated to the controls, how the game works. And now they're starting to give me much more challenging things that are optional, and then also levels that are really changing much more significantly with the Wonder Seeds.
Yeah.
Which I really like. The ones that stick out to me are the level where you have to jump on the platforms and they slowly start to spawn to the music, right? And the music continues to increase in tempo each time. That
one's nuts.
Ooh, that one was really good. I love that one. And I like the Wonder Seed level, or that Wonder Seed aspect to the level where you're doing it in 2D, right? From the side view, and then you're in 2D, but it's top down, and now you're walking on what used to be the walls is now the floor.
Right. Yeah.
That one was also really good. So it makes me much more excited to see what else they have done with this game, because now they're really showing me like, okay, no, we're getting pretty creative with what we're doing here. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this one now.
Yeah, there's a pretty real world where if you play that game, like that very much could be your first Mario game.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it does make sense that they'll start you with like some pretty basic shit. But yeah, God, that the level with the platforms that like appear and disappear based on the music going is so that one
good.
Really kicked my ass. I had to work at that one for a while.
I had to get into the patented gaming position.
Yeah, you sit up just a little bit,
which I learned about in my in my esports 101 class.
Oh yeah.
Because as we say,
proximal stability equates to distal mobility.
So you're trying to get more stability in your forearms and your elbows so that your fingers can do much more dexterous maneuvers without losing the stability of your core.
There's a reason for the gamer stance.
There's a reason for there's a biomechanical reason for the gamer stance.
That's sick. I love those.
Now you know.
Now I know. Thank you. Thank you for this gift.
You're welcome. Anyways, that's everything I've been playing this past week. What have you been playing, Chase?
I got 2 games for you, David. So I've been teasing it for quite some time.
Yes.
But I finally finished Persona 3 Reload.
Hell yeah.
Kind of on, I wouldn't say the shorter end because it still took me like 50 to 60 hours, but compared to like Persona 5 Royal, which like easily took me over 100, this one was like a little bit shorter, and like that's fine. I think anything over 30 hours for a Persona game is like, that's fair. Like the games are long.
Who complains about a 50 or 60 hour game? Are there people out there doing that?
I probably, but I guess just more of a notice for myself of like, I don't know that those extra 40 hours necessarily make or break the game. It still felt like, yeah, that was definitely a Persona game.
That's a whole long game.
That's a whole long game. That's a whole thing.
Anyways, continue.
I will mostly, I'm going to keep it spoiler free now. I don't know if I'll like talk about spoilers in totality because there's a lot there, but I think I'll like just keep it high level for now and maybe talk about them a little bit more later on maybe another episode or something.
Yeah.
For anybody who's like new to that series or doesn't know what a Persona game is, these are it's kind of a long running series that really started coming into its own with 3. 1 and 2 are like very much different video games than 3, 4, and 5 have been. And 3, when did this come out? Yeah, it was in 2006. I think Persona 4 was like 2010, 2011, something like that. And Persona 5 came out, I think in 2018, 2017. 2017, actually, I think is when that hit. I wasn't introduced to the series until Persona 5, like that was my first one. And most of those games are some combination of more traditional turn-based RPG fighting with this life sim component of the game. Life sim meaning like the game has a calendar that you are walking through, and every day you get to choose kind of what to do with that day. That can be anything from hanging out with a friend, or going to an arcade and upgrading one of your stats a little bit, or studying in your dorm room, or in the case of Persona 3, going to Tartarus, which is their like dungeon essentially. In 4, there's like the kind of TV world that you can get sucked into, and then with 5 it is the not castles, palaces. Yeah, the palaces in Persona 5.
Great name.
Which are like a manifestation of someone's kind of like evil mind in a way. So yeah, it's always this kind of balance between these very high stakes, wild RPG things that are happening and the relatively lower stakes of just like hanging out with someone that you like, or going to track and field practice or something.
Sure.
It's all sort of inheriting from the like Tokimeki Memorial like games where it's like you're just a guy who's going to high school and you get to choose what you do with your time and shit like that. This isn't like a new genre, but for me personally, the Persona 5 was the first one of them that like I felt like this is something that I can engage with in a way that feels fun for me. I think something that is more common for life sim games is that they're a little bit lower stakes, all things considered. There's an argument to be made that like, you know, Stardew Valley could be a life sim or something like that. But I think the stuff that I'm talking about when I'm saying life sim is these kind of games that are based around like social connection and routine with the stuff that's going on. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I had never played Persona 3. It has a couple of releases, and I don't know that this one is the definitive edition. There are a lot of drawbacks to this one, namely being that they didn't include the female protagonist, which like does tangibly change what you can and can't do in the game.
Why'd they do that? That seems like a big omission.
Yes, that is the correct opinion, I feel like. I don't know. Atlas, the maker of the company, is like, I don't know, it was too hard. It would have taken too long. I think that I was listening to Girl Mode, and they're a lot less hot on this game than I am. And I think a lot of that is because they did like the original release, and they did like the female protagonist that you could play as. Sure. And like by not including that, it does kind of feel like Atlas is just like, nah, that's not the real game, you know?
That's a...
It feels kind of bad, right? And they have a history of doing this where they kind of like don't put the emphasis on the female character, and like, you know, I don't want to cast like a wide net, but like this is not a game that only appeals to like men, you know?
Yeah.
I think that this is a game that is appealing to many kinds of people and genders. So it does feel, it's a very weird move, but regardless, I think point being that this might not be the definitive edition, but I knew that this one was going to be the one that I probably had the highest chance of sticking with because it has a lot of quality of life upgrades. It looks a lot like the more recent releases. Like they went back and changed pretty much every part of the visual layer of this game to make it look a lot more like Persona 5. And like, you know, as a person who Persona 5 was their first one, like I appreciate that. I have heard arguments from people that like, you know, the kind of visual of the first one aided the kind of thematic stuff it was doing. And so to make it look as flashy as 5, which like the point of 5 is kind of the flashiness, like even in the narrative of that game, that to apply that to 3, which is like a much more quiet or considered story, like it's sadder isn't the word, but it's like contemplative in a way that 5 is not. Like 5 is just like, let's kick everybody's ass who's a bad guy. Great. And Ryuji saying "for real" for 40 hours.
I do like Ryuji. He's a fun character.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Ryuji.
Pirate ship? Good.
Oh god, yeah, very good. Anyway, so I knew this was going to be the version for me, and it is because clearly I got through the whole damn thing. I think overall the plot in this one is much better. Not much, but it's better than the other ones. Like I like 5 a lot, and I am like such a sucker for differing worlds being the places that you go to in any game, where it's like each level is like totally visually distinct from one another, and like you're kind of guessing of like, where am I going to go next? Who's the next big bad guy, and like what is their palace going to look like? That kind of stuff like really pulls me in and really draws me through the story. But like something about the narrative is that some of it in 5 does feel kind of like each person is sort of an individual little chapter, but then like at the end it culminates in a way, but I don't know if it's like thematically makes a ton of sense for why it's all happening. Whereas 3, like I think 3 starts in a different way. Like the story is a lot quieter initially. They get you into the main game loop very quickly, but they're not hitting you over the head with like, here's what the end of the game is going to be about. It's like a lot easier to digest, but it just builds over the course of the game where like stakes are raised, different things are happening, characters are introduced. They do like they're pretty gutsy with who they're willing to kill in this game. Like main characters do get offed.
Sure. Wow. Okay.
And like something I really like about this game is like they really let you feel the impact of those kind of losses for like the rest of the game, you know? And those are definitely narrative moments. It's not like that just happens out of nowhere if you like, lose when you're fighting in Tartarus, but I think that they deal with death in a way that is not like a video game, that it is like significant and big, and you can see every character feel the impact of that shit, which is cool. It's very interesting. And it's discussed in a way where like, it's not just I'm sad. Some people are also like mad, or someone's like, I have much more complex feelings about this than I should, or feel like I should, or anything like that. So all that stuff is just great. I like, and to kind of finish the point there, I think the end of the game is exceptional. Like the way that it ends, the way that everything ties together, it's just so good and speaks speaks to a lot of different perspectives. I think there's a lot of thematic resonance for me with like just what it feels like to be that young, what it feels like to feel like you're in a room of people who don't care about the world, or they're not like awake in a way that you perceive yourself to be.
Sure.
And I think a lot of the way that they mark those differences is like, the people who are quote unquote like, afflicted in this game, they call it apathy syndrome.
Oh man.
And yeah, it's really interesting. And like the people who you see who are like deeply afflicted with it are just kind of like lingering, and like oftentimes they don't even like give them like faces. They're just kind of like background people. But they're just like kind of staring at the ground or like slumped over or something like that. It's very bizarre. Whoa. But I think there's an interpretation there about like, I felt this when I was, in my teenage years, of like, it feels like the adults just aren't paying attention in any way.
Yep.
That like, if you kind of dull yourself to the world, that this is what happens. You just like aren't conscious in a way. And there's definitely like, some young person judgment about how adults live their lives. But I do think that like, even outside of that can speak to a lifestyle where like you're just kind of isolating yourself and cutting yourself off and like not allowing yourself to like feel a lot of the things that you're experiencing. And I think that Persona oftentimes differentiates the main characters and the people who are like, not afflicted with apathy syndrome as people who are feeling quite a bit, good or bad, right? That all of those emotions are in there.
Yeah.
Which is all very good. And so I think that like just experiencing emotion is a motif that you see come up in this game constantly. And it's just handled really effectively. There's a character named Aegis who is like a robot in this game who was like created specifically to beat the shadows, like the bad guys. And her journey in the game is like fascinating. Again, just centered around like feeling and experiencing emotion and, how you connect with other people. I think all of that is just like so effective. And like, again, I love Persona 4, but the story of that one is much more centered around like, let's find the murderer, and they have these moments where any certain character will have like a big moment where they're fighting against who like and this is in 4, fighting against who they think they are versus like who the world wants them to be or perceives them to be. And like the clash of those two things is a very important moment in 4, but I don't know if it all just is quite as cohesive as what happens in 3. Like storyline and thematically. It's really, really good. I was not expecting it to, I just wasn't expecting it to hit as hard as it did.
Sure. Because when did this game originally come out?
2006. So it's been a while. There was a release on, I think it was PS2, and then it also came out on Vita as well.
Whoa. Vita.
But yeah. And so like, I can't speak to what exactly how every story beat happened when it first came out, but from the people who I know that have played both versions, they're like, yeah, a lot of this shit was in there already. So it's cool to see that being done again over the course of a gigantic long RPG. The S-links, which are a thing in this game where it's like it's just a word for your connection to specific people.
The slinks?
So like the slinks, yeah. I think a lot of them are like truly wonderful and really, really cool. There is an old couple at a bookshop that is one of your S-links, and like each of them represent a certain kind of tarot card, right? So they're the Hierophant, the sort of like older person who is almost a guide for you. And that's the same as, I can't remember the name of your like pseudo dad in Persona 5, but the cafe owner.
Yeah.
Same tarot card between those people. But they're really wonderful. There are a couple of like characters that are just fucking gut punches of characters. Specifically, there is one of a guy who you meet in a park, and he's like, hey, I have a terminal disease and I'm dealing with that. And like, it's not like pretty for a lot of it, like he's clearly like dealing with the physical ailments of what that like means, but it's so good. I feel like it is just, they understand the implication of what a lot of these people are dealing with when they're looking at like their own mortality. And they just handle it with like such care in a way that isn't just like, you should use your time well. Like, like sometimes that doesn't work for somebody who has like a month left,
Yeah.
Like, what does that mean? So like, what does that person do with their time? And I think that like inevitably a lot of their, the things that they come away with are like, your connection to people matters and your time does matter, even if it is, shorter or longer than another person.
Mm-hmm.
It's worth mentioning the way that you summon your persona in this game is by using this like pseudo gun that you have to shoot yourself in the head with.
Oh, that's this one.
That's this game.
Dang.
Which happens immediately. It is so early in the game. You're part of this organization called Seize, and like that's the tech that they use to summon someone. Oh my God. Summon someone's persona is to use this like gun technology that they
My
have.
summon is someone.
And like just imagery wise, what a fucking swing that is.
Yeah.
So like,
would this game be made nowadays?
Yeah, I don't know. And like,
with that, at least that component.
Yeah. I mean, like it was like this game is out,
Sure.
And I think it would be easy to pass that imagery off as like flashy or like, well, they're using the kind of like imagery of this like kind of pseudo suicide as like fluff. But I think because the whole game is so about like your resistance or your acceptance of your own mortality that it does hold thematic weight. That like death and dying is such a big part of this game.
Yeah.
I won't like dive super into spoilers, but like, actually, you know what? If I say this, it'll totally blow the end of the game. Never mind. I can't do that. Abort. Yeah. But I just love these games. I think that like the value that they bring is in this kind of like routine that you can slip into with them of just like going about your day, doing the stuff that you want to do, talking to the people who you want to hang out with or you think are cool. And there's a lot of people in here. There's some stinkers in the bunch for sure. Your classmate who wants to date the teacher, I just totally ignored for the most of the game.
What the heck?
I'm like, no, this guy sucks. I don't want to hang out with him. But a lot of them are like truly touching stories and feel very real and lived in and like real people. And so I think that there is a lot of value in that. It's transportive for me. Nice. I like personally am a person who like, I have a hard time seeing one day as just the day. Like I want every day to feel, I don't know, big or like it like means something. Again, like I think the existential dread can just creep in, but something about these games that weirdly, despite the fact you're playing, a ton of days right in a row, it weirdly makes me feel good about just like, here's the one thing I did today. And that's like good enough,
Not watching Friends, right?
Not watching Friends, because I will see the void if I hear Chandler's voice. I don't know why Friends really freaks my bean so much. But so it is comforting in a way that it models this kind of strange behavior of like, yeah, you can just study tonight. That's the thing that you can do. And it doesn't mean that like, your life or your time is somehow wasted as long as that, you're still focused on the connection around the people or a connection to the people around you. Yeah. And sort of like living your life with a certain amount of pride as well. It's cool. It's good stuff. Like I said, Tartarus is fine. That's the main fighting. You're essentially fighting from the first level of this huge tower, and you have to get to the top. And there are, I think, 264 levels, which took some time, right? It's a long thing. But that's
why that many?
I have no idea.
Very arbitrary.
I think so. And like, honestly, that kind of hits for me in a certain way of like, life is kind of arbitrary, like
we threw 3 numbers against the wall and this is what stuck.
I mean, like, that's kind of what it feels like of like, I'm just going to die one day. I don't know what time of day or what date it's going to be. And the number is going to be arbitrary in kind of a similar way, which, that's me reading into this game a little bit. Like, I'm sure they were just like, I don't know, this seems like enough. And then, cut it. But it's like, fine. I think that the core part of Persona where you're using these like different personas that you can sort of collect throughout the course of the game and to exploit the weaknesses of the other like monsters that you're fighting, that still really works. Yeah, like that part of it still hits pretty hard, which is cool. But like the actual dungeon crawl, it's like truly a dungeon crawler. Like each floor is pretty similar to the last one. There's some visual changes that happened over the course of the game, but like not that dramatic, Again, comparing it up against 5, which is like everything is so like unique. So authored and unique in that game as far as the dungeon design goes, other than the kind of Tartarus that they have in it, the mementos section of that video game. That like I think it can feel a little dull in comparison, but like, I don't know, it's fun. Like you don't have to be in there that long. So I neither hated nor loved Tartarus. It was just kind of there. And that was the part of the game. It
existed around Chase.
Yeah, it's a good place to listen to a podcast for me.
There you go.
So yeah, I would love to talk about spoilers at some point, but I think I'm going to hold off on doing that just so somebody doesn't get accidentally blasted right here with Persona 3 spoilers. It's a very long game and it did come out fairly recently, so I don't want to totally blow it for someone. Anyway, this game means a lot to me, just like narratively, and I think it's very good. But it, of course, you know, it comes with the caveats of like, why is Atlas making the decisions that they're making around the characters? And like, you know, why was their choice around the sort of like trans scene in this one originally being trans panic? Now they're just like, no, that's not a trans person anymore. Like there's a little erasure in there, you know?
Yeah. It seems like instead of facing the problem head on, they're just like,
what if
let's ostrich this. Head in the sand, doesn't exist.
Didn't exist. Yeah, no, it didn't happen.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
Yeah, so like there are both things in this game, but for my experience, it landed for me. So yeah, I'm finally free of this video game. I feel like I've been playing it forever. It was a good game.
And now my watch has ended.
Yeah, I'll move on to the other gigantic video games. Like this and Infinite Wealth have taken up so much of my time early in the year here.
I think that's kind of been like your January through March of this year has been those games mostly.
Yeah. Which honestly, that's great. That's good.
They're not a bad thing. They're good games, it sounds like.
Yeah, no. The seasonal depression has been warded off by a medical dosage of vitamin D, Infinite Wealth, and Persona 3. Wow, that rhymed. That's nice.
Wow. Are you on the D tonight?
No, I've got the Sunday D lined up.
Sunday.
Sunday, yeah.
Nice.
It's because I sleep much better when I take the dose of vitamin D. So I do it on Sunday to set my week up good.
Wow. What a fucking adult move. Look at you. That's amazing.
These are the kind of decisions I have to make as a 33-year-old where, you know, drinking on a weekday is now a big risk and I have to take my vitamin D dose at the right day so I can get a good night's sleep.
Hashtag adulting. Am I right, my fellow millennials?
Oh my God. The other game I've been playing is Dragon's Dogma 2, David.
I just want to say I appreciate that you just blasted by my millennial cringe, but please continue. Dragon's Dogma 2, I'm interested. What's going on?
Yeah. Are you familiar at all with the first Dragon's Dogma?
I am familiar with the name, and that's about it.
Yes.
I did not play the game.
That was a very similar story to where I was at like up until a couple of years ago. And like I knew that game existed and I was like, I don't really know what this is. And there were like a few sickos in the corners of the internet screeching about how good the game is.
Yeah.
Two of them being the hosts of Into the Aether, Brendan Bigley and Stephen Hilger. Both of them like say like, hey, this is great. And we both love it. And I tried to play that game a few times. And I will say both times I tried, it didn't really work for me. Something about it just felt like too sluggish in some ways. And like the story took a really long time to start like doing something.
Sure.
The tutorials felt very long. And so like I think just something about it, I couldn't really grasp like what was wonderful about that game. And so for the most part, I was just like, I don't know, maybe it's not for me. But this game has been kind of like, you know, getting some press. And of course, both dudes over at Into the Aether have been yelling that like, oh my God, I hope this is really good. And I saw that the reviews were pretty good too. So I was like, all right, well, like maybe I'll check this out. This one's working a lot better for me than the first one.
Good.
It's such a different kind of game that I am used to. And I think that like I will probably like my language will probably fail me during my attempt at describing why it's fun.
Sure.
Because it is just doing so much shit different, despite the fact like it's just a fucking fantasy game where you're fighting monsters in the woods, you know, like that part of it is pretty traditional, but I think the incentives that they have set up in this game and the way that they structure like danger and what is supposed to be fun is just so different than what I'm accustomed to. I hear people kind of speak about how there are two routes that could have happened in the 2012s. It was either Dragon's Dogma or Dark Souls, and Dark Souls kind of just like took it because like so many games after, you know, the original Dark Souls that came out in 2011 were like, yeah, let's also do that. Right?
Yeah.
And it kind of like, it got really, really popular. And I think culminating with Elden Ring, right?
Sure.
That like everybody was playing Elden Ring.
Yeah.
But Dragon's Dogma was putting forth sort of a different model, even in the first one. And I think as far as I can tell, like, again, the first one I didn't put hours and hours into, but from my exposure to the first one and now having played some of the second one as well, I think that what Dark Souls does is both games are interested in friction, in like how to challenge you and where to put that friction. I think that the Dark Souls games is interested in putting the friction in the combat. That the combat is the thing that you have to learn how to be patient with.
Sure.
And how to like figure out what the game wants you to do.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like with Dragon's Dogma 2, the friction that they're interested in is friction in the world and friction in like your interaction with just the state of everything.
Yeah.
So let me explain what I mean by that. The game opens up pretty simply in Dragon's Dogma 2. You get this bizarre kind of cutscene where you seem to be some kind of royal or something, and then you cut to being like a servant or a slave in a mine essentially.
Whoa!
And something happens. There's a Medusa or something that shows up, and chaos kind of ensues. And you and this other dude have to escape the mines. You end up in this world, and you like land on a griffin or something, and it flies you very far away.
Fucking love that. I love that.
Extremely fantasy
That's
stuff.
great.
And the game sort of proceeds from there eventually. And I think when the game starts to kind of hit its like main loop is when you get to the first kind of larger city. And from there, it's like there's a bunch of quests you can do. Some of them are like, hey, there's goblins out there that we need to like root out in this cave. Can you go do that for me?
Mm-hmm.
Or it's like, hey, there's somebody who's missing. Can you go find them? Or our weapons shipment got delayed and we don't know why. Can you go find the cart or something like that?
Sure.
And from there on out, like the friction of the game to me starts to become apparent of like, okay, I don't have very much gold. That's just not a thing I really have.
Mm-hmm.
Equipment's pretty hard to come by. And the quest is like very far out in the woods.
Sure.
So like I do have to walk there because pretty notably fast travel is not something that is always available to you in this game. I'll get to the whole microtransaction nightmare in a second, but like it is not what it seems. The game is not like requiring you to pay money. I think it's actively asking you like, you probably shouldn't. Like if you want to engage with the game that like we're kind of intending for you to play, you don't need to. That's not a thing you really need to do.
So you're saying people are purposefully spreading misinformation on the internet? Is that what you're saying?
As long as they can screech about being mad at the companies for not tailoring exactly what they want. Yeah. I also don't like microtransactions in games, but like this one's not that.
It's no
egregious.
NBA 2K. If you spam
no
A button in
NBA
the
2K.
beginning, it doesn't take you to the store, right?
Yes. Yeah. I don't spend $100 on a cool sword or something. But anyway, so, you do have to run out there. And then the game also starts playing with this like day-night cycle where it is significantly more dangerous at nighttime than it is at daytime. And so you do have to be like very conscious of the fact that like, if I wander out here, will I have enough time to even get there? And especially in the early game where like you don't have a lot of gold, it's like, yeah, but I do need to pay for like a night at the inn if I want to rest.
Gotcha.
And so like I should probably just risk it and go out there. And so the friction starts to come when you are looking at all these systems and having to make decisions about like, I need to be back in town soon. And the game simply has not given me enough time. Now I have to figure out that problem.
Sure.
Right? And I think in something like I've been reminded a lot of like Death Stranding while I'm playing this game, just in the way that like the world in Death Stranding feels hostile to be in.
Sure. Yeah.
Just very dangerous overall. This one in a similar way. Whereas with Death Stranding, I'm like, God, this is stressful. I hope I don't run into any BTs and like fuck up the like stuff that I'm trying to transport. My cargo. Yeah. Whereas in this one, it is still dangerous and like you stand to lose a fair bit if you just like totally fuck something up, but it's so much fun in other ways. Like the first day that I was in the castle, I was like, oh, it's still like midday. I'll just go out and like fuck with a lot of these quests and like figure some shit out. I'm like deep into the forest and I'm like, is it dark in here or is the sun actually going down? I like try to get a better vantage point to see like what time it is.
Sure.
And then I'm like, oh yeah, no, the sun's going down. I should probably start heading back. But like, I got time for extra quests. Sun goes down. It's dark as fuck. I can't see anything. And from the just darkness, I hear a like guttural roar.
Oh,
I'm like,
no.
oh, that sucks. We should probably not find out what that is. And so like I'm just sprinting with my like party of pawns, which I'll talk about in a second. We run into like some just regular goblins. I'm like, all right, I guess we got to fight these guys real quick because they're like really in the way back home. Anyway, we finish fighting and like a gigantic like club comes swinging out of the dark as this like huge troll comes out of the night trying to just like fuck me up completely.
The trolls,
the boss health bar shows up at the top like, this guy's not going to be easy for you. And we start like, I'm like, I guess I just fight this guy, which like in Death Stranding is stressful. In this game, I'm like, that kind of kicks ass. That's fun. I'm going to fight this fucking troll.
I will fight you, dragon.
Yes, yeah, literally. And so we get about halfway through that fight. A ghost shows up. There's just like a specter that starts like going woo, like through the middle of the fight. I'm like, I don't really know what you're doing, and I almost don't have time to deal with you. So like, I'm just gonna keep fighting the troll.
I'm going to ignore you until you do something that I can't ignore.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I was like, I'll just try and deal with this. One of my pawns managed to just kill the ghost as I'm killing the troll, which goes down. I get some cool shit, and then just like take off running because I'm like, I can't fight another one. Yeah. I already burned way too many resources fighting this guy.
So is this a fantasy game with elements of a survival game in it then? Is that what it feels like?
It is. It's not like survival in the way that like, you know, you punch a tree in Minecraft and you get resources.
Sure.
I think it is, you can definitely see the connection between the fact that like there is an abundance of danger in the world if you are not prepared for it. In the way that, you know, in Minecraft, if you don't build a house at nighttime, it gets pretty fucked up, right? In kind of a similar way here. And so like, I think all of that adds up to just a world that is, I wouldn't say not happy to have you there, but is not really like treating you like a god, I think, in that most other video games do.
So more like almost like a sim, almost like simming a fantasy world.
A little
Is that
bit,
closer to it than survival?
A little bit, yeah. It's like the Gran Turismo of fantasy or something.
Sure,
like,
yeah.
And I think that that's awesome. Like it is a very different approach to how to build a world. Yeah, even Dark Souls, like a lot of the time you can fast travel or you can use an item that'll bring you back to a bonfire or like anything like that, because that's, you know, the intention with Dark Souls is that the enemies and the bad guys are hostile to you, but like the world is kind of beautiful in a way, right? Yeah. Like it's kind of calm and
haunting
and chill. It's haunting, yeah. And like traversal is not always the thing that you need to worry about. It's the guy around the corner who the camera hasn't shown you is there.
Bastard.
And like the enemies are definitely a problem here, but like Dragon's Dogma is like, the place is fucked up, man. Like you got to be careful about what you're doing. Even outside of the big trolls, you know, like going into deep water will fuck you up. Sure. Or there is this thing that like has been kind of debated on the internet already. I think it's called Dragon's Plague, which is a disease that afflicts your pawns. Again, I'll tell you what that is in a second, but it afflicts your pawns. And if it goes untreated during the nighttime, the pawns will just go on a rampage and kill people.
Whoa.
And there is no restriction about who they can kill, right? Like you'll wake up and
like crucial NPCs as well.
Crucial story important NPCs that they will just murk if you don't like focus and pay attention to the stuff that the game is telling you. Which is, I think initially if you hear that and your brain has been tailored to see setback in a video game as a bad thing, that sounds shitty. I think, however, if you see setback as a fun opportunity to like make your own story in this game, that's awesome. Because like there are items that you can get that will bring people back from the dead. It's just a real big hassle to go find those.
Sure. You're like, all right, I got to go on a quest now.
Yes. Yeah. And like, that's cool. I think that we need to at some point play Far Cry 2 because this game it's showing a lot of emergent gameplay in the way that Far Cry 2 did, right? Where like the game has set up a ton of mechanical systems that are all running at the same time. Sometimes if you're not paying attention, those will collide in a way that you are not expecting, but none of that is authored into the video game.
Sure.
Like there might be a moment where it says, okay, the first time that you get Dragon's Plague is at this moment. Sure, fine. But like from there on out, like it's you, buddy. Like you're the one who's got to focus on it and figure out like, oh shit, one of my pawns has Dragon's Plague. I gotta like deal with this before something bad happens. Or, oh my God, the sun's going down, right? Like I gotta get back to town.
Can you just kill one of your pawns? Can you just like send them out into the wilderness and be like, see you later, bro?
I think the solution is that you have to send them back into this like summoning area.
Put them back in the game. The primordial ooze.
Pretty much. Like the game's description of what the pawns are these like I don't even know exactly the right words for it, but they're like not people. Like they're like NPCs almost, just like husks of actual real people.
Neeple, if you will.
Neeple, yeah. But it's like they make it very clear, like, listen, this is not a person. This is just like vibes. It's like a plant almost.
This is vibes personified?
Yes, yeah. But like because you are this thing in this game called the Arisen, which is just a word for you got your heart ripped out by a dragon and you're still alive somehow.
That's cool as fuck.
It's sick as fuck. Like the
so
fantasy
fucking cool.
stuff in there is cool as hell. And it's sick.
Great.
Like the cutscene where that happens, the dragon just puts one of his little fingers and just like pokes you in the heart and pulls your heart out and then eats it, which is sick. It's so cool.
We are ants to them. My God.
Yes. Yeah. Like they make dragons feel horrifying in this game.
We're living in their dogma.
Yeah, true. Anyway, these pawns that you have, they respond to your every command because you're the Arisen. They're just like, if they see you on the road, they're like, oh shit, it's the Arisen. What's up, dude? I love hanging out with people like you.
So they're fanboys.
Please, they're absolute good boys. I feel like they are the internal dialogue of a golden retriever given body and voice. Just like they're constantly just absolutely stoked to be there and just to go on a quest with you. That is their whole deal.
Until they turn heel and then kill somebody really important.
Which honestly is like a kind of horrifying exchange because like most of the time you're running around town, they're like, oh my God, look, it's a ladder. Let's go up it.
Mm-hmm.
The Arisen has told us to go fight the ogres. Let's do that. Like they're just stoked about everything that could possibly happen and are totally willing to be like, I'll die for you, Arisen. Because they like in the game, they make it very clear if these people die, they're not gone. You just have to like re-summon them.
Sure. They're somewhat immortal, it sounds like.
Pretty much, yeah. And so the idea with Dragon's Plague is that you have to send them back into the goop, the summoning portal, to maybe like fix them or something. But if you don't do that, again, the game has mechanics for what happens if you don't. Sure. It has a response to that. And so I think that in the way that Dark Souls is asking you to hit the roll button when you see someone swinging a sword, Dragon's Dogma 2 is asking you, please pay attention to the things that we say or like the clues that we are giving you in the game, right? Like,
gotta goop them up.
If you hear something screaming in the woods at nighttime, don't be in the woods at nighttime. Yeah. Right. And so there's like this cohesion that starts to form where I'm way endeared to like the world and the place, and it feels tangible in a way that like, you know, someplace with fast travel kind of doesn't. Right. And like, of course, again, with taking the Dark Souls example, the world is characterized very differently in those games. Like the avenues by which it is characterized are different. And so like that's not the point in those games with fast travel, but because this one has like removed it, it is asking you to engage with different stuff. The value of the game is in a different spot than it would be with fast travel. Weirdly enough, the only thing that I can really think of that is similar is the kind of recent run of Elden Ring, Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom in the way that like this game feels like it is saying, okay, what if Elden Ring was like a little bit more populated? Like there were actual like towns and cities and like people and shit. Sure. Because like Elden Ring, that is not the case. The world is blasted and like you are one of 10 weirdos wandering around this earth. Yeah. But this one has like people and stuff to interact with and like shops and shit, which is cool in the way that the same way that Elden Ring had like just a big wide open map where like there's plenty of shit out there to do. So does this one. It just also has like NPCs and big cities that have some safe harbor for you. Gotcha. It's very wild. I didn't really expect to appreciate it so much, but I think in its friction and in its approach that is kind of saying like, this is not going to be the joyous experience that you might be used to in an open world game is, you know, like if you put these up against each other just visually, you could see like, okay, like I see what Assassin's Creed is doing and like it kind of looks like, you know, a third person action game. I can see what's going on there, but Dragon's Dogma 2 is so much more hostile towards the player in a way that somehow feels refreshing. It somehow feels like, yeah, this actually is very cool and different. Yeah. This is not the open world where you just go out and enjoy the sights, feel the world. Yeah. You can do that, but you also have to be very careful and cognizant of what is happening around you. Otherwise, you're going to get murked, it sounds like. Yeah, I think that a lot of open world games, and this is kind of excluding the Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild comparison, but a lot of open world games that they will give you accomplishment through just putting in time, you know, like in a lot of Assassin's Creed, it's like those games are pretty easy. And even if you boot it up to higher difficulties, it's like the lessons that you have to learn are kind of just like hit good and like have good reaction time and shit like that. And as much as like I love Horizon Zero Dawn, like that is a similar kind of game where like most of it's pretty easy, and the game doesn't leave a lot of spots where you might say, like, what am I even supposed to do here?
Yeah.
And like, I think that this game's accomplishment, and in a similar kind of mirrored way to Dark Souls, like the accomplishment that you can feel in Dragon's Dogma 2 is like, I learned the lesson of the world and I sort of respected nature almost. And like,
sure,
I'm doing okay, right? Like when you get to the end of a quest, you're like, okay, I fucking survived. It was brutal and I got attacked by a minotaur on the way back from the goblin cave, but like we made it. We're back.
So this game is really putting into action kind of what all of the wildlife guides that we experienced growing up at like elementary school field trips were telling us. Like, you have to respect the wild. It is wild out there.
Yes,
it will get you if you're not paying attention.
Yes, it's the look out for poison ivy of video games. Like, if it's shiny, watch your hiney of video games.
This is not civilization. This is the wilds.
It's bad out there, so please be careful.
Mm-hmm.
Another one of these things that popped up that I really loved was like, there was a locked door near this like open field kind of outside of the city. And the game was like, hey, sometimes doors are locked for certain reasons. So you should come back at different times, or like, you know, try to figure out a reason why it might be locked. Behind the house was a griffin, and I was like, oh man, like, do I have to kill this thing to get the people to be not scared to open their door? And like, on a whim, I was like, I don't know, like maybe there's a world where it doesn't want to fight me. Like, it's just this wild beast, and if I can just like do some damage to it, maybe I'll spook it and get it to run away.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody will come out of the house at that point. Sure enough, I fight it for about 30 seconds. It does just a brutal amount of damage to me and my pawns. And then a few seconds later, it's like, actually, fuck this. And then just flies away. And I was like, oh yes, this is so good. Like, so glad the intuition was there and that the developers had the foresight to say, like, I don't know, maybe just like try and scare it away.
Yeah.
Because it's not an ogre. It's not a big thing with a weapon. It's just like a bird that like is going to defend itself, but also maybe doesn't want to like die. I mean, you know?
If there was a bird in my house, that's what I would do. I wouldn't try to like kill it. I wouldn't take a machete.
Just like, get out. Get out of here.
Shoot. Go away.
The door remained locked. I just had to come back during the daytime, but it's a very interesting like back and forth that they have there. It's great. I think it's all very good. The pawns absolutely rock. I love all of them. You can also make a custom pawn, and like, you know, people are making some real freaks out there. That's just very good.
Scratch Bandicoots.
Some scratches. Yeah, absolutely.
Is this an action, like a third person action game? Is it turn based? What is it?
I didn't even talk about the fucking fighting mechanics. It's like a third person action game. It is a lot less of like a Dark Souls game. Like, there's no like dodge roll. Or at least like if there is, it's not like a main thing that you have. It's much more like put your shield up and take the hit and like make sure your stamina is okay.
Sure.
It definitely takes some influence from Shadow of the Colossus, because you can absolutely like jump on dudes and climb up to their head and like stab them.
Hell yeah.
Which is like very good, especially it's very, very cool. And like, I keep getting reminded of that like fight in the first Lord of the Rings with like all of the like trolls and the orcs and shit when they're in Moria. And like, it's just chaos in there, and people are jumping on the troll's head,
just trying to stab him. Like Aragorn bringing out his dagger, just stabbing it in the head a couple times, thrown off.
Yes,
yeah.
A lot of the fights feel like that, where it's just chaos. Like, there's so many bad guys, and you have like 3 or 4 people on your team, and you're just fighting like a minotaur or some fantasy ass creature.
Love it.
That's trying to fuck you up, you know?
Man, I should play this game, shouldn't I?
I think you would like a lot of it, especially the fantasy aspect of it all. There's a lot of lore, a lot of shit going on that I think you would enjoy quite a bit.
Said the L word.
Lore. Yeah.
Deep lore. Let me get lost in that wiki.
Anyway, David, this will all bring me to my Podtimistic thing of the week.
Which is?
It is the handheld device called the Playdate, David.
Oh, you got that?
I got that. It came in yesterday.
Can I see it? Do you have it next to you?
I don't have it next to me. I'll grab it between the break, but
Okay.
I'll show it to you after that. This is for anybody who like doesn't know what I'm talking about, this is a very tiny little handheld device that was built by that company Teenage Engineering, which makes like the little like keyboard synthesizers and shit like that. Like, they're known for their kind of bizarre but charming designs that they make for physical devices.
Yeah.
And then another company, I can't remember the name of it, but you know, it's this collaboration between these two folks, and it's just a little weird handheld that they made. It's got a directional pad, 2 buttons, and a crank.
The crank gets me every time.
It's really funny, and it's always used for such bizarre reasons, but it's really fun. It's I knew about this system for a while, but I was just like, I don't know if there's like enough shit that I want to play on there that like I'm dying to get it, but I had happened to go on itch, and there was a bunch of games that I was like, oh, those all look really good. And they were all for the play date. So I'm like, well, shit, I gotta get it, man. I gotta pick this thing up. So grabbed it, downloaded a bunch of those games. God, they make side loading content so easy because there's like a store on the play date, and you can just like download games from there, but like you can just log into their website and be like, hey, here's the zip file of the thing I want to sideload on my play date from your computer. And then when you boot up your play date, it's like, hey, you got a new game. Do you want to download it? And then you can just do that. It's so easy.
Yeah.
You don't have to like plug it in or like SSH into your play date.
Oof.
You can just do it. So I'm having a great time. I will definitely be bringing a lot of those games next week. But right now it's so charming. It's such a strange little device that feels superfluous in a way that like I really enjoy. Like it feels frivolous in a way that a lot of game consoles do not.
Sure.
In a fun way, not like why are there no games on a PlayStation 5, but more so like I really don't need this, but man, is it fun.
Sure. Hell yeah. That's awesome. It's the most hipster gaming device I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, it's absolutely the like 2010s mustache of video game consoles. Just very bizarre.
You gonna get a tattoo of it on your forearm or something?
I'm gonna get it. In my lower lip.
Brutal. I don't even want to think about that.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's what's on my mind.
That's awesome.
I'll talk about it more next week with all the games that I'm sure I'll bring about that. But
do you like the Crank?
The Crank is very fun. They've made the Crank feel very good.
Is there a Jack in the Box game?
I haven't found it if there is yet. There is a like root beer filling video game, at which point you like crank the beer out into the cup.
Nice.
Which is very fun. There is also a game, Sparking Ghost, something like that, where you like catch what are essentially Pokemon by like aligning the gyroscope in the playdate and then cranking to like reel it in essentially.
Sure.
Very fun. Very good.
Cabela's Big Bass Fisher 2024 is on there exclusively.
Exactly. David, do you have something fueling your sense of optimism?
I do. It's rhythm.
Yeah, dude. Rhythm. Absolutely.
Infinite Guitars, Hi-Fi Rush, the Mario levels where you are jumping to the beat. They're all so good. I just love when any game starts to incorporate the music and the sound design as part of like the gameplay element, or giving you hints as to what to do and when to hit things or when to jump, right? It's just always so satisfying when that is done well.
Yeah.
And I think it just adds so much to the experience for me personally as a rhythm freak, I guess I could say.
Sure. Yeah.
Really fun. And I want more. I guess I just want more rhythm in games. I just want more because there's like, especially after playing Infinite Guitars, there's just so many different ways you can incorporate it that are different and fun and unique. And I don't think that we've really scratched the surface as to how we can bring more rhythm into games. And I think it's hard to do. I don't think it's an easy thing, which is why a lot of developers don't go that route, because it's not. I think Harmonix made it seem easy because they just nailed it so well. But man, making it feel good to hit something at the right time, an easy thing to do. But
no,
when it's done well, man, does it hit. Man, does it hit.
It really does. Yeah, man. I mean, Rock Band is the best game ever, you know? Like, this shit's so good.
Did you see this new Rock Band controller that came out? Guitar controller, the Rift Master?
I did, yeah.
Ooh. If I still played Rock Band, I would definitely play that.
Rhythm is good.
Rhythm is good.
Hey, do you want to move on to our main thing, David?
Yeah, let's do it.
Welcome to Good Games. It's a segment where we talk about the okayest games of yesteryear and gush all the things that we love about them. We got an anonymous user suggestion this time.
This was anonymous?
And they did not leave their name, which I really love.
They put their Guy Fawkes mask on and said, hey,
yeah.
play this game or else.
Remember, Hatoful Boyfriend.
Hatoful Boyfriend.
We got suggested to play this game called Hatoful Boyfriend. Which is a visual novel dating simulator.
Sure is.
It seemed like you had some familiarity with this. Had you played this game before?
I had not. I'd heard of it.
Yeah.
I think I'd seen it on Game Pass when it was on there for a hot second. And I was like, what the hell is this
on
game?
Earth is this?
I didn't download it, obviously, because I had not played it.
Yeah.
But it was kind of on my radar because of that it's such a different concept for a visual novel.
I'm with you. I also had heard of it, but was like, I have no idea what's going on here. I'm just like also less familiar with dating sims.
Yeah.
We had done a little bit of an episode about it back on episode 69. Nice. But
is that really Doki Doki? Was that 69?
Yeah, it was. We did
man.
Doki Doki Literature Club and Dream Daddy and then something else too. I forget what else there was on there.
Wow.
It was a fun episode, but that was mostly my exposure to visual novels.
Yeah.
And so I was a little bit like, should I do this? Like, does this feel okay? Just to like, do I have enough context? Essentially was my question.
Sure.
And the answer is sure. Why not?
Sure.
It's a
Why
fun
not?
game.
You sure do.
Can I always hit you with some hot stats about this game, David?
Please.
Hot stats.
The original incarnation of this game came out July of 2011 as an April Fool's joke.
2011.
A long time ago.
Whoa.
The actual like full worldwide release was in 2014, April 13th.
Uh-huh.
And so like a couple of years after that. And I think that the April Fool's joke was like mostly not a proof of concept, but the whole thing wasn't there, right? It was made by largely by this manga artist called Hatomoa.
Oh.
That's her name.
Okay.
And she was like new to development, but was like obviously an artist before that. And she, I think the development company she was using, or like was that she called the company that she called that developed this was Pidgeot Nation, which is sort of amazing.
So good.
Yeah. So yeah. And then obviously there was sort of the re-release and HD versions that have come out since.
HD.
Yeah.
This is a very important HD game.
Yeah, the visuals are the biggest part of it. Let's see. I do have a review. Joe Video didn't have a hand on this ball.
No.
So we have a review from
Anime News Network.
Ooh, was that the very intense news ticker going on?
Yes, exactly.
Great.
Yeah.
Loved it.
The news alarm. I took the review. I ran it through Google Translate a number of times, one language into another, eventually arriving back out in English to get sort of an artist's interpretation of what was going on there, which I will read for you now, David.
Let's hear it.
When Hatofula's lover is at his best, when Hiyuka flirts and strokes the fire between a pair of outlaw riding birds, that's when he's at his best. From being smart in his field to things that are based on ridiculousness, Pakar Hatoful is known for his sincerity. While you can join your loved ones in JRPG boss battles or search for familiar candies from decades ago, at the end of the day, they're just a bunch of birds trying to survive another day. Hate Girlfriend is simple and fun. He didn't run to his house and poke his elbow and ask if he knew the game. He let the bird be who he was. And they gave that an 83% out of 100.
Man, Anime Network, that's a good one.
Kind of bringing some
really
heat.
Good one.
Kind of bringing some heat on this one, Anime News
Let
Network.
the bird be who he is. Let the bird watch.
They had a very largely bird positive message in that
Very
review.
bird positive. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that was nice.
We need more bird optimism around here.
We sort of already went over what the game was.
It's not
a
huge. It's not like three things mashed up together. It's pretty straightforward.
No, it's a visual novel where you date birds.
Yeah,
birds are your boyfriends.
Different types of pigeons.
Yeah.
Specifically, yeah.
They will, and you can toggle this on and off, but they will momentarily give you a drawing of what that person might look like as a human, but it is a bird. Like in the game, it is a bird.
I toggled that off. I just wanted the birds.
Hell yeah, that's awesome.
Give me the birds, baby.
The birds only run.
Birds only.
Just let him be a bird. So, what did you think of this one? This is a bizarre game. I need to know where you're at with it.
It was bizarre. It was very strange.
Yeah.
It's hard to make a connection with a bird for me, personally.
Yeah.
So
I was not as driven to date these birds.
Same. I'm just like, okay, this is like the weird nerdy bird. This is the jock bird. This is the popular bird. This is my best friend, boy next door bird. My teacher bird, which was questionable, but yeah, it was hard to look into those beady little eyes and be like, yeah, this is the
love
bird
here
for me.
I'm with you. You really had to rely on strictly personality in this game.
Yeah.
I just right out of the gate, I have to get on the record. I fucked up dating these birds so bad. I didn't know what was going on, so I just kind of was like, I don't know, I guess I'll go over here. Or part of my problem too is that I wasn't really memorizing the names of the characters. And like, I didn't remember like, wait, who is Ryoto or Ryota versus like Nageki? Like, what was the difference between those two characters?
Oko-san.
Yeah, well, okay, here's the bummer part, David. I fell into a deep relationship with Oko-san, and I don't like that.
The milady of the birds?
He's just a bird is the problem. Like, I read on the internet that like Oko-san is the bird that I think the developer was modeling after her bird. Like, she's just like, I want there to be an actual very bird-like character in this game. Because the rest of them like speak English or, you know, Japanese if you're playing that version. And like they just talk to you like a regular person. Oko-san just like shrieks. Yeah, he makes bird noises, and then like he's also somehow the captain of the track team. He's also obsessed with pudding and likes to like stamp his feet around it and shit like that.
Yeah.
So everywhere I went in this game, I was running into fucking Oko-san over and over again.
Couldn't shake him, huh?
No, he's everywhere. So I very much fucked up my own romance.
Perfect bird match.
Yeah, me and Oko-san.
I think I was going for, who is it? Yuzu? Yorzu? Yuya, the popular brother of the Fancy Pants one.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yuya also seemed like pretty like down to earth. Cause yeah, the big fancy bird, I was like, absolutely not, no shot.
Yeah.
Who was that?
Sukuya?
Yes, Sakuya is the big fancy pants birds, whereas Yuya is his brother.
They're both French, vaguely.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm with you on that. That was a good choice.
Yeah. No, I was satisfied with that choice. We did some medic tent stuff with during the track meet or the sports festival. That's what it was.
Yes, yeah. Essentially, the way that this game plays out, I don't know if we've really touched on it, but like it's a visual novel, so most of the time you're just like in a place and you read like the dialogue between different characters. And from time to time, you'll have like the option to choose either a dialogue option or just choose what to do with your day.
Yeah.
And it's jumping between like pretty big spans of time. It's like it'll be April 3rd and then it's like, you know, June all of a sudden, rather than like you playing every single individual day.
Yeah.
And so like a lot of your play of this game will just be determined by like who you run into and what happens, and like where you choose to spend your time.
Yeah, you go into gym class, you go into math class, you go into music class, you join the track team, right? What extracurricular are you doing? Oko-san, right?
He's on the track team, baby.
He's so fast.
So I mean, like all of that's pretty like straightforward dating sim stuff. Obviously the bird part of it is very not straightforward, but like, I don't know, it's fun, it's cheeky, and like that's all. I don't know, I thought that was very fun.
It is goofy. It's a very goofy game.
Yeah, and like as much as the game is like, I think trying to kind of make fun of the dating sim or like visual novel genre, like it's pretty earnest in a lot of the characters that it's portraying. Like, a lot of them are pretty rounded, normal people that like have inner lives and shit that is interesting and like cool to experience.
They have some motivations, that's for sure.
Yeah, like they're characters. They're definitely written, and so like all of that's pretty cool and like enjoyable. I will say that the lore and the rest of the story of this game is absolutely unhinged. So like, just first off, the lore of it that is in even the dating sim part of the game is bananas, where like the implication of the state of the world is that this is like a deep post-apocalypse where you are one of the very few humans that exist in the world because there was like a bad bird flu that got out and killed most other humans. Which is why like birds are the
dominant species now.
Yeah, the dominant species. Yeah. And so like that's pretty bananas. It's like very far in the future too. I think it's like, you know, 2100 something.
20XX.
Yes, exactly. It's 21XX in the deep future, which is pretty wild. 2188 is when it is.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. Which like that, I think that would have been enough for me to be like, whoa, what a wild piece of lore that is. But if you choose to, when you do the sophomore year of this game, you can choose to go down the bad boys love route. It's very good.
That's great.
And the main character has these like recurring dreams of her younger self and Ryota, the like kind of sidekick main character. You can romance him too, but like he's sort of introduced as like, you've been friends with this guy for a while.
Next door kind of deal.
But she keeps having these dreams with her and her parents lying dead in front of an unfamiliar house.
Oh.
And like keeps having these, you know, weird dreams. Eventually you switch to playing as Ryota and you find the murdered body of the protagonist that you've been playing as the whole time.
Oh no.
The rest of the game is you like locked in, what was it, St. Pidgeonation's
St. Pidgeonations, I think is what it's supposed to be.
Yes, yeah. You're like locked in there trying to like figure out who the murderer is, all the while like other birds are being killed and shit like that. It's bananas.
I didn't get to that part.
Yeah, no, I mean like it's kind of hard to unlock despite the, not like hard, you just have to like play it for a while, but it's wild because that makes up a big chunk of the playtime if you like just are looking at like how much text is in the video game.
Oh, sure.
It's really interesting. I feel like we keep playing these visual novels that they try to like buck trends of other visual novels. Mm-hmm. Most of them also have a very like grim, dark horror turn that happens at some point.
It seems like a very self-aware genre, but then also wants to really play with the kind of cutesy, I guess, perception
aesthetic
of them. Right.
Yeah.
And really kind of turn that on its head.
I think so. And like, I feel like you see this sometimes in anime too, where they'll make pretty big genre swings from one thing to another.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think just visual novels inherently make for pretty good places where you can do a genre swing that big because like, it's just not just, but you don't have to program in new mechanics for the murder mystery part. It's just like new art. Yeah. Right. So if you're comfortable making more art, then you can just as easily make a dating simulator as you can like a murder mystery horror game.
Yeah, you can. It's easier to turn it on its head.
Yeah, you don't have to totally rebuild the whole video game. Mm-hmm. And so like it kind of makes sense why that would happen in a visual novel. And I feel like you see that a fair bit too in other shit where like the premise of the game is not always what ends up happening at the end. I think about Kill the Princess 2, which came out last year, which is a similar sort of thing of like the story that you were being sold initially is really not what is going on, which is cool. And it like just thinking about like visual novels as a medium, I also think that makes sense because like if you're not from that genre or someone who's like really consuming that a lot, there's not that much stuff that you can really do to kind of surprise people outside of like narrative, right?
Sure.
Because if it is truly just a visual novel, meaning like you're making kind of like predetermined choices that are happening at very specific points, like really the only thing you can do there is change the narrative from one place to another. Because if you build it any more complicated, suddenly you're just a normal video game, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like actually building out more mechanics and doing more complicated shit. And so like it makes sense, right? That that kind of thing would happen here, but it is bizarre that it comes up a lot.
Right. If I had a nickel for every time this happened, I would only have 2 nickels, but it's weird that it happened twice.
It's weird.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I again, I feel like visual novels are just such a blind spot for me that I can't speak with any sort of like authority on like, this is what they normally do, or this is what they don't normally do. We just happen to keep playing games where like there's a cutesy aesthetic up front and then something wild
Maybe
happens.
That's episode 200. We just play a bunch of visual novels and get educated on the genre.
I bet there is a subsect of our audience that would be like, fuck yeah, dude, finally, it's time.
They don't know what they've been missing.
Yeah.
They probably don't.
Honestly,
I don't know what I've been missing.
I probably don't. Yeah, that's
Absolutely,
the thing. Like I know that there are a lot of games in that genre that like people really laud.
Mm-hmm.
And so it would be worth looking into. See if we could play a few. Yeah. What else about this game? Any other feelings about it?
I thought it had a very fun, dry sense of humor, right?
Yeah.
Very much like they are not trying to be like overtly, haha, this is funny, but just like, this is the world and these are the puns that we've made for this world now. Isn't that a fun pun? I love a good pun, which is always good in a game when they lean into it.
They kept saying every bird instead of everyone.
That really took me funny. That took me a second to really understand what they were going for. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. Every birdie instead of everybody.
Yes. Yeah. Really, really good.
Nice. I like that. I did enjoy how you can increase your stats. I never got really to the point where that made much of a difference, but I always love a good stat in a game that I can increase. Feels good.
Yeah.
Doesn't make it ever feel wasted, especially if I get stuck with Oko-san doing something somewhere.
Stomping on pudding. I think there was one point where I walked in on him just like eating a bunch of like pellets off the ground. And I'm just like, all right, I'm in on this too. Let's eat the pellets off the ground. We're doing this together, bud. And it seemed great. It seemed like a fun time. Yeah.
It's just very irreverent so self-aware of itself. It's not that it's painfully self-aware, but it's just the right amount of self-aware, I would say, to be enjoyable but not necessarily cringy. Right? It toes that line well, I think.
Yeah, no, it totally does. Especially if you're like not someone who's of this genre. If you just popped in here, you could be like, what the fuck am I looking at?
Yeah.
But it's kind of nice that it is self-aware enough to be like, we know this is ridiculous. Like the genre is inherently a little silly, but like we're just going to take that up to 11, which is fun.
Exactly.
It's cool.
But then it also takes itself just seriously enough to make it still feel like, okay, these people are trying to make a game. They're trying to make something enjoyable to play, not just like a one-off laugh that you play for like a couple minutes and you've seen everything essentially.
Yeah. Like, I mean, like we said, the a lot of the writing is like good. I'm interested in the people that are in here. I want to know like what their story is and what their deal is.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
all that's really good. I don't know. Is that it? It's like kind of a huge game. Like there's a lot in there, but I think because like I'm just like not as, I haven't played the Dragon's Dogma 2 of dating sims or visual novels. I don't have enough to pull apart other than like, I don't know, it's pretty good. It's fun. I like to date pigeons. It's funny.
Yeah, it was a silly, fun time. I don't know if you have to dig deeper than that with this game
maybe not.
Necessarily. I think that what you said about the change of it into a murder mystery when you play it enough is a fun twist.
Yeah.
But, I don't think it's necessarily trying to say something with that. It's just trying to give you more interesting content to engage with if you like these characters and have got to the point where it's like, okay, let's see something new. And then it does that. And it's a fun twist, a fun change of pace.
Yeah.
But it's a dating sim. Date whatever pigeon you like, baby. That's great.
That's
Get
great.
some bird love.
I think that the turn that this game makes from the dating sim to the kind of horror part of it is handled a little bit better than it was in Doki Doki. Like there's definitely like some kind of like body horror stuff that happens in Bad Boys Love part of the video game. But like, I think Doki Doki started to rely on like almost shock value with some of the content it was engaging with. In like a way that I didn't find totally necessary and like kind of took me out of it in certain parts of like, they were going for Doki Doki Literature Club is like, there are parts of it where it is trying to kind of break the fourth wall in a lot of ways. And that stuff is interesting. And like, I don't know if that's aged particularly well all the time, but like, I like that. But it engaged with a lot of like self-harm and suicide conversations that I was like, that's kind of heavy if you're just trying to do the fourth wall breaking stuff. Whereas like Bad Boys Love is a murder mystery. And like I said, some gruesome parts, but it's mostly just like birds killing birds. And like, it's murdering. Unfortunately, like my brain is more attuned to just like video game violence with like killing than it is to like self-harm violence and stuff. Like really does kind of like take me out of the experience sometimes.
Sure. Absolutely. I mean, understandable. It's different.
Yeah.
It is different.
I think I'm much more numb to the like shooting bad guys part of video games. Yeah.
I mean, you've been doing it since you were 8.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, I've been around for a while. Anyway, do you have anything else to say about this game? I feel like that was not a super long segment, but we talked about Dragon's Dogma 2 for like 45 minutes.
Sure did. I'm just looking at the human portraits of these birds, and I need to know, is Oko-san's portrait just also a bird in a suit?
It's also a bird, yes.
Fantastic. I love that.
Very good.
I love that. It's just a bird.
It's just a bird. It's like a real bird who has wandered into the bird dimension where birds are also maybe people.
It's a modern bird in a future bird game.
Yes.
It's like if a Neanderthal was sent into our modern times almost.
Yeah, if there was a caveman in Dream Daddy or something. Like, what are you doing here? How'd you get here?
Yeah, you look like us, but you're not us for sure.
Not exactly the same.
Yeah. That's great. I love it.
I thought this game was delightful and silly and fun. Thank you to whoever suggested it.
Delightful is a good way of describing it. It was delightful.
Just a fun little romp.
A fun little romp with some birds.
So thank you to whoever suggested this.
Thank you, Anonymous.
Hello, gamers. I'm going to keep this one short and sweet. If you want to go and talk to us on the internet, do it at podtimism.com. It's got all the good links. Join the Discord. That's the home for all the other The Worst Garbage Network shows, which are all very good, and you should listen to them. You can come hang out in there. It's It's a great time. Thank you to you listener. You rock. Thank you for listening to the show. Thank you, Scott Wilkinson, for our art. It's also very good.
You rock.
Thank you to The Worst Garbage for having us on the network.
You rock.
It's very good. If you want to help the show, leave a review somewhere. It helps a lot.
Mm-hmm.
David, do you have any gaming wisdom?
That was short and sweet.
Short and sweet,
Short
baby.
and
Promised
sweet.
and delivered.
You know, don't date your teacher.
Yeah.
It's probably ill-advised. It's not going to
It's
end
probably
well
not great.
for either of you. Just a rule of thumb. Rule of thumb.
We have unfortunately learned that from 2 separate video games this time.
Absolutely. You know, I don't know what bird law is like in the year 2188.
Yeah.
Maybe it's different. I don't know. But judging by my human standards in the year 2024, not a good idea. Not a good idea.
Not great. There's a bit of a power imbalance there.
Yeah.
That, like it's kind of hard to navigate as a high schooler.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Also, like maybe don't date a bird. I don't want to yuck your yum, but like
I mean,
avian flu is a thing.
But if there's just birds left, what are you going to do?
If there's just birds left, man, who cares? Date a bird.
Love who you love. That's cool.
Love who you love. That's cool. But like now, you just walk up to a pigeon in Grand Central Station and you're like, hey, baby, what are you doing after this? That's probably not going to go great. Unless it does. I want to leave the door open a little bit for pigeon love.
Leave pigeon love. Man, pigeon love is a strong term. We need to start doing pigeon love to distract the far right and give them something else to rail against so that all the actual humans who actually exist can just start living their lives in peace.
Yeah, maybe we make like a honeypot for the right where we like all as the collective progressive left just be like, listen, it's all good. None of us are like truly into this, but what if we tried to convince the sickos on the right that like we're all really into pigeons? So that's like the new thing.
We're going to make some really good deep fakes. AI is great now. They're going to fall for it. It's going to be great.
And they'll freak out and screech about that for a while. And all the while we'll be like, okay, yeah, but like free healthcare, right? And they're like, as long as you're not dating a pigeon. Like, okay.
Easy.
All right.
Easy, buddy. I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm not against people dating pigeons. Love who you love, but that ain't me. We're fine.
Trans rights and gay rights and everything, we're still good. They're like, yeah, as long as it's not pigeons. Like, okay, fine.
No
Got
bird rights.
Yeah, no bird rights.
In basketball, that is a thing, actually. They call it your bird rights.
Ooh, what does this mean?
It's named after Larry Bird. And it has something to do with whether, like, if someone on a rookie contract does really well on your team, you can give them a lot more money than another team can once they hit free agency if they hit like certain criteria. Are you looking this up right now?
Yeah, I'm checking it out.
They call it your bird. They got your bird rights.
I mean, yeah, you got it. It's like a scaling contract for former first round draft picks. Maybe we should petition for bird rights.
Bird rights. Okay, so everyone get onto your AI generators, picture generators, make some like weird art with people marrying pigeons and just like at, Fox News, at DJT. Get it going on Truth Social.
Say this is what your kids are doing.
This is what the woke liberals are trying to teach your kids in school. It's okay to marry a bird.
Hey, Google, can you generate some nude images of myself and a bird, please? Thank you.
Just straight to the nude images, huh?
We ain't got time to waste, man. We got to fix climate change and make sure that like no trans rights are being stepped on.
There you go.
And that like abortion is codified so the Supreme Court can't fucking take it down.
We need an outraged honeypot.
Yeah. Make them freak out about something that isn't even real.
Here we go, baby. This is the new world.
There's like 3 people out there who like actually have married a bird and they're like, guys, you need to lay the fuck off. You got to get off.
We are
my fucking
under the
spot.
radar right now. We do not want the smoke. Let us alone.
Please do not make this your honeypot.
We'll find something else.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
If not birds, something different.
We'll see you next week, gamers.
All right, see ya.
Bye.
Bye.
TWG, the worst garbage, the online.